Tonight on Y News. At least 16 people were left dead, 6 remain missing as Typhoon Ursula leaves a trail of destruction in parts of the country. Leyte province declares a state of calamity following the onslaught of Typhoon Ursula. President Rodrigo Duterte dares CPP founder Joma Sison for a one-on-one talk in the Philippines. Firecracker-related injuries days before the year-end festivities. And the Philippines witnesses partial solar eclipse after 75 years. Good evening. 12 people were left dead and 9 were reported missing as Typhoon Ursula barreled through the Iloilo province yesterday. 8 municipalities in the province is recommended to be placed under a state of calamity. Lalaine Moreno will tell us why.
The weather in the province of Iloilo is now fair, but the Typhoon Ursula left a trail of destruction in the locality. Based on the record of various municipal disaster risk reduction and management councils in Iloilo, 12 people were left dead after the typhoon hit the province. 7 died in the municipality of Batad, 4 in Balasan and 1 in Carles. According to the Municipal Disaster Management Council, most of the fatalities drowned. Authorities are still searching for 9 missing persons. The town affected by the typhoon includes San Dionisio, Balasan, Batad, Sara, Pasig City, and Concepcion, mostly in northern and central Iloilo. Iloilo Governor Arthur Defensor Jr. visited the affected areas this morning to check the situation of the residents. The governor is asking immediate aid for his countrymen.
Kailangan dito ang kuryente at ang relief operations namin. But of course, pagkatapos niyan, ang third priority niyan, kung anong mga damage to infrastructure na ang pwedeng tulungan natin.
Governor Defensor is recommending the declaring a state of calamity in the 8 affected municipalities. Batad Mayor Elvira Alarcon already said that she will recommend her municipality to be under state of calamity due to vast damages on houses and agriculture. 12,000 individuals are affected and 300 houses are totally damaged.
Nandito na yung mga 24 barangay captain ko kasi mag-ano kami sa aming Municipal Advisory Council. I-recommend namin sa Sangguniang Bayan na mag-declare kami ng calamity within the 24 barangays namin.
A total of 400 families or 1,627 people are reported to be taking shelter in evacuation sites in the towns of San Dionisio and Concepcion. Communication and power have been reported as problem in some areas. In other areas hit by the typhoon, several villages were flooded. Landslides were reported, roofs blown away and scores of structures damaged. The powerful typhoon hit land 7 times as it slammed into central Philippines with devastating winds and torrential rains. Lalaine Moreno, UNTV News and Rescue, Iloilo.
The death toll caused by Typhoon Ursula has risen as more fatalities were reported in affected regions in the Visayas. The Office of Civil Defense Region 8 will conduct an aerial inspection to assess the extent of the damages brought about by the typhoon. Jeneline Gakit Valles reports why.
3 fatalities were confirmed after the onslaught of Typhoon Ursula in Eastern Visayas, according to the Office of the Civil Defense or OCD Region 8. 2 of the victims from Cabukgayan, Biliran Province and Baybay City, Leyte got electrocuted. Another casualty, a motorcycle rider, was recorded in Malitbog, Southern Leyte.
Isa sa ang naging cause ng death ay kumbaga nag-drive siya ng motorcycle tapos iniwasan yung natumbang or nahulog na live na wire. So nung umiwas siya, parang nahulog yata sa pavement.
Eastern Samar Governor Bin Ibardoni said the provincial government will give 25,000 to the families of each victim. Local government also recorded deaths in Eastern Samar in the aftermath of Ursula, but the OCD has yet to confirm such reports. The OCD Region 8 will conduct an aerial inspection to assess the extent of the damages while conducting clearing operations.
We also requested for the availability of helicopter para magkaroon tayo ng aerial survey bukas. So we intend to conduct the aerial survey tomorrow if the weather will permit.
More than 60 cities and towns in Eastern and Western Visayas regions are without electricity. Telecommunications services remain erratic. The powerful typhoon which hit land in the Visayas 7 times with destructive winds of 140 to 195 kilometers per hour, and intense rains toppled trees, caused flooding and storm surge, blow off roofs, cut off power and communication lines, and damaged several structures. Before 5 p.m. today, Vice Governor Carlo Loreto signed the declaration of a state of calamity in the entire Leyte province.
Nag-declare na in state of calamity ang Sangguniang Panlalawigan, no? And we have agreed, no, na mag-declare in state of calamity. More than 15% na hand crops and infra affected, which is why justified na its state of calamity.
Jeneline Gakut Valles, UNTV News and Rescue, Tacloban City.
The parents of a 19-year-old barangay tanod in Mandaon Town, Masbate Province, mourn the loss of their youngest child. Thanks to the help from the local government, they can bury their dead son in a makeshift casket. Niña Armilio reports why.
Two parents are grieving after the passing of their 19-year-old son just before Typhoon Ursula hit Masbate Province. Aniceto and Wilma Umbas recount, Bonbon was supposed to go on duty as Barangay Tanod at Tosezi Mesa Senior Memorial Elementary School when the local government imposed a preemptive evacuation on residents. Bonbon was on his way to the school, which would serve as an evacuation center, when he got electrocuted after getting in contact with a hanging electrical cable. At that time, Masbate Electric Company or Maselco was conducting a clearing operation in preparation for the coming storm. The residents even attempted to save the victim, but couldn't.
Nagkuasa kulinti. Hindi sabay ni Sir Upian. Ngayon dito pag-iwagunan kulinti. Yan pagkuha niya, sabi ni Sir Upian, yung pagkuha na kay base may kulinti, sumabi message ko na. Huwag ko ni Sir kay nan kuano, huwag makulinti. Yan pagkuha ni Buni, bata ko. Na kuan, namo to na kuan na siya. Tumalbo siya, pagkatalbo niya. Sa tubig.
The victim's mother couldn't believe what happened to their youngest child. Maselco has removed the dangerous electrical cable to prevent another accident. The Umbas family cannot afford even the cheapest casket due to poverty. They haven't even repaired their house after a tree fell on it when Typhoon Tisoy lashed Mandaon Town in the early part of December. The local government has provided financial assistance to the Umbases to buy wood, nails, and paint for a makeshift coffin. Niña Armilio, UNTV, News and Rescue.
In times of calamity, we experience and witness untoward incidents happen. But this is also the time when we can show our compassion to our fellow men, our fellow Filipinos affected by a disaster. Residents in some parts of Cebu are in need of relief assistance. Gladys Tuabe tells us why.
The northern portion of Cebu was greatly affected as Typhoon Ursula hit the province on Tuesday. Due to strong winds and heavy rains, houses were damaged. Local fishermen's equipment destroyed. This morning, Philippine Coast Guard or PCG Central Visayas personnel transported 2,800 relief goods from the Department of Social Welfare and Development Region 7 Office in coordination with the Cebu Provincial Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Office. The relief assistance has reached Carranza and Malapascua Island. The PCG will conduct maritime surface patrol to check the effects of the typhoon. For those who wish to give assistance to the affected areas, you may contact the PCG at 0917-842-7102 or cgd.cv@coastguard.gov.ph. Gladys Tuwabi, UNTV News and Rescue, Cebu.
Residents affected by the wrath of Typhoon Ursula are assured of financial assistance from the government. The typhoon has devastated parts of Eastern Visayas and Southern Luzon, where casualties were also reported. Panelo did not clarify, however, if President Rodrigo Duterte would be visiting the typhoon-hit areas.
During this time of calamities, all the agencies involved in the rehabilitation, in helping, assisting, are all in place.
The tropical cyclone wind signals raised in response to the torrential rains and destructive winds of Typhoon Ursula have been lifted throughout Luzon and Visayas, State Weather Bureau Pagasa said Thursday afternoon. Despite the lifting of storm signals, light to moderate with intermittent heavy rains are still foreseen over Lubang Island and the northern portion of Palawan, including Calaman Islands. This, along with cloudy skies with scattered rains over Zambales, Bataan, and the rest of Palawan. Pag-asa said the eye of the storm was around 300 kilometers northwest of Coron, Palawan, or 295 kilometers west-southwest of Subic, Zambales as of this afternoon. Although continually moving west to northwestward, Ursula still maintains its strength, and residents in the aforementioned areas are still advised by the Bureau to take the appropriate safety measures. Sea travel, Pag-asa said, was also still risky. According to Pag-asa, Ursula is expected to exit the Philippine area of responsibility on Saturday morning.
Welcome back to Y News. We pick up to where Angelo Castro III left off. I'm Alex Baltazar, and here are the headlines. President Rodrigo Duterte dares CPP founder Jose Maria Sison for a one-on-one talk in Manila. President Duterte signs extension of validity of 2019 budget to December next year. The Department of Health records 19 firecracker-related injuries days before the year-end festivities. The Department of Transportation's Technical Working Group refutes alleged political influence behind the approval of Joyride and Move It motorcycle taxis. And the Philippines witnesses partial solar eclipse after 75 years. Good evening. Death toll in Visayas has reached 16, with 6 individuals still missing. Almost 11,000 families remain in evacuation centers, although the weather condition has improved in the region. Meanwhile, authorities advise passengers headed for Visayas to contact the bus companies they will use to travel before going to their terminals or stations. Vincent Arboleda will tell us why.
Typhoon Ursula left massive devastation and claimed lives when it passed the Visayas. The National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council reports that 16 people were found dead, 2 injured, and 6 missing after the onslaught in Eastern and Western Visayas regions. A total of 12,139 families were affected by Typhoon Ursula in Mimaropa region, regions 5, 6, 7, 8, and Caraga region. Of this number, 10,905 families continue to take temporary shelter in evacuation centers. 115 cities and municipalities experienced power outage, but power in 25 cities and municipalities have been restored as of today. Stranded passengers now dropped to 224 as trips to the islands of Visayas has resumed. With the improved weather condition, passengers wanting to head for their provinces in Visayas, including Samar and Leyte, and in Masbate and Bicol, flocked to Araneta City Busport in Cubao. This time, they were not left stranded as bus trips proceeded. terminal authorities say that trips to Mindoro and Iloilo may resume tomorrow.
Makakuha tayo ng balita at umayos ang panahon doon. Definitely by tomorrow, officially baka makapag-resume na.
And though the Philippine Coast Guard has already allowed sea trips from the Batangas port, bus terminal authorities has this advice to those headed for Visayas provinces.
At least matawagan nila muna bago sila pumarito sa bus station. Nang sa ganun hindi sila maka-antay at umasa. At least direkta nila malaman mismo sa bus company kung kailan magre-resume.
For passengers with trips going to Roa City and Iloilo, you can contact Valisno Express Liner at 0910-251-5470, and for Alps Bus Incorporated, call 8911-2186. Vincent Arboleda, UNTV News and Rescue, Quezon City.
President Rodrigo Duterte dares Communist Party of the Philippines, Jose Maria Sison, to come back to the Philippines for a one-on-one meeting. The chief executive also awaits the explanation of the communist rebels on their alleged attacks on police and military personnel despite ceasefire declaration. Rosalie Cos reports why.
President Rodrigo Duterte dares Communist Party of the Philippines founder Jose Maria Sison once more return to the Philippines for a one-on-one talk. According to presidential spokesperson and Chief Presidential Legal Counsel Salvador Panelo, this is about peace negotiations, different from the possible resumption of the peace negotiations between the Philippine government and National Democratic Front peace panels.
The president is daring him to come home to the Philippines and have a one-on-one talk with the president. He is asking him to come to the Philippines. There will be no enforcement of any warrant. Just come to the Philippines and talk with him.
The chief executive is also waiting for the explanation of the communist rebels on the alleged recent attacks of the New People's Army. The palace condemns the alleged ambushes of NPA rebels on government forces in Camarines Sur and Iloilo on Monday. That was the first day when both the government and the leftist groups declared unilateral ceasefires.
We condemn, of course, the violations of the ceasefire agreement. We are giving them the chance to explain why it has committed such a violation. He will wait for the explanation coming from them.
Meanwhile, President Duterte is letting the localized peace talks in Davao City to proceed. This after presidential daughter and Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte Carpio asked the exclusion of their city from the possible resumption of peace talks between the national government and the National Democratic Front or NDF, as well as the declaration of unilateral ceasefire. Rosalie Cos, UNTV News and Rescue, Malacanang.
Presidential spokesperson and Chief Presidential Legal Counsel Salvador Panelo backtracks his earlier statement that National Security Advisor Hermogenes Esperon has received false information on the New People's Army kill list, which allegedly includes President Rodrigo Duterte. The palace official says he has personally spoken with Esperon, who told him the information has been validated. Secretary Panelo reiterated the government is ready for any threat to overthrow the administration.
I was talking to Secretary Esperon earlier, and he said the inclusion of the president in the hit list has been validated by them. So it was not wrong info fed to them. And according to him, as I said, even if they deny it, the opposition has denied it, the fact remains that indeed the president is included in the list, including him, including the secretary and others.
The Philippine National Police leadership wants its personnel to be ready for any attacks of the New People's Army despite the existing ceasefire. Leia Ilagan explains why.
The Philippine National Police or PNP believe the New People's Army is not sincere in the declaration of unilateral ceasefire from December 23, 2019 to January 7, 2020. This is because of violations when NPA members attacked police and military personnel in Camarines Norte, Iloilo, and Quezon Province, killing 1 and wounding 8 of them. PNP Directorate for Operations Police Major General Emmanuel Licop advises their men to be alert all the time and defend themselves from the NPA surprise attacks.
Pwede kang lumaban, but you don't do it on an offensive manner. So kung right at the very ambush, nandun sila, pwede kang lumaban.
Meanwhile, the PNP joined the indignation rally held by various sectors in relation to the 51st anniversary of the Communist Party of the Philippines. The indignation rally aims to condemn the harassment of the communist rebel.
Itong mga riders organize ourselves na ipakita naman na we're supporting the effort of our friends from the civilian sector who wants to support the National Task Force on LCAC.
About 200 personnel of PNP Highway Patrol Group riders from the National Capital Region, Central Luzon, and Calabarzon joined the rally. They went to Liwasang Bonifacio, Monumento Circle, UP Diliman, Baclaran, and EDSA Shrine. In December last year, the President released Executive Order Number 70, a whole-of-government approach to end the harassment of the CPP-NPA. Leia Ilagan, UNTV, News and Rescue, Camp Crame.
President Rodrigo Duterte officially signed last week the measure extending the validity of the 2019 national budget until December 31, 2020. The New Republic Act 11464, which amended Section 25 of the 2019 General Appropriations Act, was signed on December 20. The new measure will allow government agencies to spend this year's fund, particularly for maintenance and other operating expenses, or MOOE, until the end of next year. The measure is to address the government's need for budget after the delay in the passage of the 2020 national budget and the implementation of the midterm election ban on infrastructure projects. The MOOE covers the budget for daily operations of government units. The president already certified as urgent the passing of the 2020 national budget. It is expected to be signed in January next year. There are now 3 motorcycle taxi companies operating in Metro Manila and Metro Cebu. However, this is now surrounded with an issue of alleged political influence, but the Department of Transportation refutes such allegation. Joa Nano tells us why.
The Technical Working Group, or TWG, of the Transportation Department stands firm on its new policy, which limits the number of motorcycle taxis to 39,000 despite the opposition of ANCAS. Alberto Swansing, a DOTR consultant and a member of the TWG, reiterates that all motorcycle taxis have no franchise. According to Swansing, it seems that ANCAS has mistakenly thought the pilot test run was a move to allow the legalization of its operation.
Yung 17,000 na sinasabi ng ANCAS na madi-disenfranchise. So ang tanong ko, what disenfranchising ang pinag-uusapan diyan? When they do not have a franchise in the first place. Please nila yan, pinangakuha nila yung mga riders na pwede silang tumakbo sa kalsada.
Based on the latest TWG record, it turned out there were only more than 5,000 motorcycle taxi units registered with the Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board, or LTFRB. 2,204 under ANCAS, 1,438 for Joyride, and 1,414 registered riders for Move It. The TWG is requiring the 3 transport network companies, or TNCs, to register their riders, since only those riders on the LTFRB's record will be recognized to join the pilot test run starting on December 23 until March 2020. Meanwhile, the TWG also denies the alleged political influence behind their approval of Joyride and Move It.
For ANCAS to accuse na mayroong political na yung dalawa, di sila tingnan din saan ang palakasan doon. Wala naman.
The TWG is coordinating with the Philippine Competition Commission on the issue of market competition among the motorcycle taxis. The TWG has yet to come up with policy guidelines on motorcycle taxis, as the group has to complete the 3-month pilot test run. Joanaro, UNTV News and Rescue, Quezon City.
Despite stern warnings and broad campaigns, it seems that the health department would not be able to attain a zero fireworks-related records of injuries in the country as a new decade enters. Aiko Miguel reports why.
Blast and burn injuries, eye injuries, amputation. Based on the Department of Health or DOH report, the number of fireworks-related injuries have reached 19 since yesterday. Most of the victims are males aged 4 to 60. With such incidents, the DOH once again reminds the public not to use prohibited firecrackers to avoid injuries. The DOH advised join community fireworks displays instead of using fireworks at home.
Sa New Year, pwede naman tayong mag-enjoy, mag-ingay. Pwede namang mag-ingay at salubungin ang bagong taon nang hindi pa putok ang gagamitin para ma-prevent natin yung mga sakuna.
There are alternative ways to make noise like using drums, trumpets, or pots. While the Bureau of Fire Protection says another object that can be used as noisemakers during the year-end festivities are whistles. Banned firecrackers include Piccolo, 5-star, and Watusi despite their sizes. Remember that it is always better to be safe than sorry. Aiko Miguel, UNTV News and Rescue, Manila.
Authorities continue to appeal to Filipinos not to use prohibited firecrackers during the year-end festivities, yet many still opt to do otherwise. In fact, the festivities have not yet begun, but the health department has recorded fireworks-related injuries already. Who wants to celebrate the year-end in the hospital, right? Therefore, it is important to know first aid procedures for such injuries. Harleen Delgado reports.
"2020 is almost here. With days leading up to the new decade, some Filipinos are now thinking of ways on how to celebrate the entrance of 2020 with a bang. Some opt to use safer noise-making alternatives such as trumpets and cymbals, while some take the risk of using firecrackers, which more often than not lead to injuries. That is why in a case of family member, a friend, or a neighbor meets a firecracker-related incident, one must know how to respond. According to UNTV-trained rescuer Benedict Galazan, there are proper ways to treat different firecracker-related injuries. For first-degree burns, wash the burnt area with running water and soap to remove the chemicals. For second-degree burns, wash the affected area with running water for 10 to 15 minutes.
Yung pong mga blister or yung paltos ay huwag puputukin. Kasi ayan po ang pinaka-defense mechanism ng katawan niya na kapag ka may heat na naramdaman yung katawan, magpuproduce siya ng liquid para yun din ang makatulong sa pag-cool down nung burn.
For third-degree burns, apply pressure to control the bleeding. Do not apply any cream, not even toothpaste. For amputated parts, use a tourniquet to stop excessive bleeding. The UNTV rescue manager says body parts that have been cut can still be recovered if they are still whole.
Yung parte na naputol or yung na-amputate na part ng katawan ng tao, ilalagay natin siya sa malinis na tela. Tapos, ilalagay natin sa sealed na plastic. Then, ilalagay natin siya sa yelo.
Galazan emphasizes a victim must be rushed to a hospital to be given utmost attention and to be administered with anti-tetanus. For eye injury, wash the eyes away with the water flowing away from the affected side. If there is bleeding, put gauze on the affected area. If an eye has been gouged out, a cup can also be used to support the eye. For firework ingestion, avoid mobilizing the victim. Lay the victim on his left side. The victim can also swallow egg whites to contain the ingested chemical. 6 to 8 egg whites can be given to children and 8 to 12 for adults. Do not force the victim to vomit. UNTV Rescue appeals to the public to fully stop using firecrackers this new year.
Kung tayo mismo hindi tayo naniniwala na mas makabubuti sa atin na hindi magpaputok, ay mahihirapan po tayo makuha yung goal natin na at least hindi lang bumaba yung case but maging zero talaga yung mapuputukan na mga kababayan natin.
For more first aid procedures, visit UNTV Rescue's YouTube channel, Lifesaver. Harleen Delgado, UNTV News and Rescue.
Welcome back to Y News. Were you able to witness the annular solar eclipse today? Well, it could be viewed from various countries, including the Philippines. The State Weather Bureau and astronomy enthusiasts consider the phenomenon as an extraordinary one. Grace Casen tells us why.
Adults and children alike grabbed the chance to witness the annular solar eclipse today. Stores visited the Astronomical Observatory of the Philippine Atmospheric Geophysical and Astronomical Services Administration or PAG-ASA at the UP Diliman campus to see the event through the facility's telescope. The eclipse was viewed in Quezon City starting around 12:33 p.m. It was cloudy around that time, so it was not easy to see the eclipse happening, although there were moments it could be viewed.
Interesting siya.
Some astronomy enthusiasts came with their children.
Para makita rin nila yung yung na talagang nangyayari yung solar eclipse.
Unlike the total solar eclipse, the annular solar eclipse creates a ring of fire as viewed from the Earth because the size of the moon is not enough to cover the entirety of the sun.
Hindi saktong natakpan yung sun ng moon kasi malayo yung moon sa Earth. Magpo-form siya ng ring.
The eclipse was observed in Saudi Arabia, Qatar, UAE, Oman, India, Sri Lanka, Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore, Philippines, Northern Marianas Island, and in Guam. In the Philippines, Balut Island and Sarangani Cloud viewed total annularity. A partial eclipse could be seen in parts of the country like Quezon City, which reached 60%. The peak of the partial eclipse happened at around 2:20 p.m., but it became cloudy. In Manila City, a group of San Beda College set up a telescope outside the City Hall to share the equipment with the public. The event is an extraordinary one for PAG-ASA and astronomy enthusiasts because the last annular eclipse observed in the Philippines was in 1944. The celestial phenomenon will be witnessed again in the country in 2063 or 44 years from now. Grace Casen, UNTV News and Rescue.
And for the news abroad, here's Kat Dumaraos reporting live from Bangkok, Thailand. Kat, good evening.
Good evening, Alex. Experts fear that the wildfires in Bolivia could speed up the melting of glaciers in the country. Details in this report. The devastating fires in Bolivia's Chiquitania region could contribute to accelerating the melting of the world's glaciers, which are already receding due to climate change. The huge fires in Bolivia this year occurred at a time when the planet was already getting hotter. The wind carried a fine particulate known as black carbon produced by the wildfires that ravaged eastern Bolivia in August, destroying millions of hectares of forest and pastures. Black carbon, commonly referred to as soot, can absorb sunlight, speeding up the melting of glaciers.
Global warming is affecting very fast. Every year, we can see changes in this mountain and the rest of the mountains. The snow level have decreased.
World Glacier Monitoring Service, or WGMS Bolivia, said that the country's mountains have lost at least 50% of their glacial mass since 1975. The WGMS added that if tropical glaciers continue melting at a high rate, the water supply could be affected at some point in the future. La Paz and neighboring El Alto experienced serious water supply problems in 2016 when a drought caused the water levels at reservoir to plunge. The Ponchos Blancos Foundation has organized a series of walks to raise public awareness about the importance of glaciers, allowing people to get a first-hand look at the impact of climate change on mountains.
We want people to be aware of it because water is our most valuable resource. We try to avoid the plunder of the forests because it causes glacier retreat, and we work so that mountain guides and tourists transport the waste to the base camps.
One recommendation is to avoid polluting the natural landscape during visits, while another is to end the periodic burning of pastures, a practice that releases black carbon and tarnishes glaciers' white surfaces. Kat Numaraos, UNTV News and Rescue. Internet restrictions is on the rise in Russia, but many Russian internet users have already found ways to get around restrictions on the internet. Joselito Liquido reports.
Russia's censorship machine is looming over the digital network, striving for greater control over the internet users in the country. Russia occupies the 51st position out of 65 in the classification of internet freedom prepared by Freedom House, a United States NGO that conducts research and advocacy on democracy, political freedom, and human rights. The Society for the Protection of the Internet said all laws in Moscow related to internet regulation are punitive. The Kremlin has defended itself from criticism, including those that warned of attempts to isolate the country online with the entry into force in November of a law on the sovereign internet that was a step towards disconnection from the global network before an attack from abroad. Russian President Vladimir Putin said the rule was aimed at preventing negative consequences from a possible disconnection from the global network, which is largely controlled from abroad. The Russian Security Council said the law was in response to a cyber strategy approved by the US in 2018, which described as an increasingly alarming attempt to dominate cyberspace. The latest controversy in the country was a recent approval of a law that plans to ban the sale of mobile phones, computers, and smart TVs without pre-installed Russian applications from July of 2020. The regulations were rejected by several ex-Soviet countries. The law on the disconnection of the internet sparked protests at the beginning of the year, and the adoption of the new rule on network regulation has increased the demand for greater civil rights in Russia. Many Russian internet users have already found ways to get around restrictions on the internet, with around 34% of citizens using these sorts of resources, according to survey. Joselito Liquido, UNTV News and Rescue.
27 peace advocates were abducted by alleged Taliban fighters while they were on their way to a peace campaign. Meanwhile, dozens were injured after clashes broke out between the police and protesters in Hong Kong yesterday. Victor Cosare tells us why.
Alleged Taliban fighters have abducted 27 members of the Helmand Peace Marchers from a highway in western Afghanistan. The group, known as People's Peace Movement, were traveling in several cars through the highway from western Herat to neighboring Farah province as part of a new peace campaign when they were taken as captives by armed Taliban. The incident took place late on Tuesday afternoon in the insecure Balablok district of Farah province. Hong Kong was marked by fresh clashes between police and protesters yesterday. During the early hours of the night, hundreds of protesters and numerous riot control officers gathered at several shopping centers. At least 25 were injured in Tuesday night's clashes, with one in serious condition in hospital. The operator of the local subway, MTR, announced the closure of Mong Kok Station and that of Chim Sha Tsui for the rest of the night. The government of Hong Kong issued a statement early Wednesday in which it said the acts of the protesters seriously disrupted social order, affected the festive mood, and obstructed other people from enjoying the festive season. Police in northern India have been the subject of growing criticism and requests for investigation for their role during protests against a controversial amendment to a citizenship law. The National Human Rights Commission of India has held accountable the Director General of the Uttar Pradesh Police for the actions of security forces during the protests that have sometimes ended in violent clashes. At least 21 people have died in the unrest in the last 2 weeks, most of them in Uttar Pradesh.
And those are the news from the other parts of the globe. Back to you, Alex.
Thank you, Kat Dumaraos, reporting live from Bangkok, Thailand. Do you often find yourself misplacing your keys, or rather, forgetting where you've placed them? Well, it must be that you're becoming forgetful. Well, experts say that eating nuts, getting enough sleep, and doing some exercise are very simple things, yet effective in improving one's memory. Dante Amento tells us why.
Oftentimes, we forget even the littlest of things, like where you left your keys or where your eyeglasses are. It may be because we are busy with our jobs or perhaps school, and it's just later when we realize the big impact of being forgetful, which often leads to problems or inconvenience. Jonathan Cabiles, the vice president of the Society of Baking, usually forgets to attend his eye checkup and even the maintenance of his car. During his long trips, he worries that his car would malfunction.
Actually, ako yearly dapat may check-up ako. Pero nalalagpas yun dahil sa busy ng buhay. O nakakaligtaan ko rin pumunta sa doktor talaga.
He even forgets to visit his relatives in Bacolod. He admits it is better to mingle with them personally. Mr. Felix, who works as an engineer in a geothermal power plant in Batangas, forgets to do his previous routines like cleaning their electric fans and other appliances which may lead to illnesses.
Dapat nga kasi hindi malimutan eh. Kaya ang impact niya parang maraming nasayang oras o kaya yung dapat hindi na na-delay.
Experts say there are 3 primary causes for being forgetful: stress, depression, and anxiety. Experts advise to sleep at least 8 hours and do some exercise among others to improve your memory.
Pagsimula ng tayo ay magising, no? Hanggang sa bago matulog, ang utak natin na di-discharge.
Opo.
Kaya humihila kuryente. What more kung hindi ka makakatulog, napupuyat ka. The more madi-discharge yung baterya. So paano tatakbo yung computer na utak kung ang power supply ay mahina?
Make a list of things to do, buy or pay. Avoid sugary foods. Instead, eat those that are rich in omega fatty acids. It is also best to plan ahead. Dan Tiamento, UNTV News and Rescue.
More and more have accepted the so-called Ipon Challenge. Maybe you are one of those, but a financial expert says the best way to save money is self-discipline. Here's Asher Kadapan Jr. to tell us why.
Are you one of those wanting to unwind and travel, or perhaps buy something on your shopping list, but you look in your wallet and find nothing? Financial advisor Riza Muyot shares her expertise and pieces of advice on how to save money and reward yourself for all your hard work all year round.
Kailangan ay marunong tayong mag-prioritize ng ating expenses. Ano ba ang uunahin nating pagkagastusan? So dapat alam natin ano yung ating needs at ano yung ating wants. Ang una nating pagkakagastusan at ipaprioritize ay yung ating needs. Ano ang needs? Basic necessity, pagkain, tirahan.
Ninang Riza explains that cutting the cost of expenses may significantly help in setting aside extra money. Avoid wasting your resources, resort to do-it-yourself merchandise and service, farm your own produce, take care of your belongings, especially the expensive ones, maintain a good health to avoid sickness and hospitalization. Mary Rose and her family were able to save money from setting aside a fraction of their daily earnings for the whole year. They limit going out with friends and unnecessary spending, which led to saving more than 10,000 pesos.
Kasi ang gusto ko sa kanya, mabilhan ng tricycle. So yun talaga yung goal ko sa kanya na kailangan within 5 years, may tricycle na tayo.
More and more people have accepted the Ipon Challenge. But according to Ninang Riza, the most effective way to save money is to observe discipline.
Bago natin magawa lahat ng yan, na makapag-ipon at makapagtipid, ang pinaka-importante ay ang disiplina. Disiplina sa sarili na talagang gagawin natin kung ano yung napagdesisyonan natin.
There's also a saying which goes, do not save what is left after spending, but spend what is left after saving. Asher Kadapan Jr., UNTV News and Rescue, Quezon City.
And those are the reasons behind the news this December 26, 2019. On behalf of Angelo Castro III, I'm Alex Baltazar. And before we close, we will recap with today's significant sound bites because we need to know, we will always ask why. Good evening.
And we have agreed na mag-declare ng state of calamity. More than 15% na hand crops and infra affected, which is very justified na with state of calamity.
The President is daring him to come home to the Philippines and have a one-on-one talk with the President. He is asking him to come to the Philippines. There will be no enforcement of any warrant. Just come to the Philippines and talk with him.
Pwede ka lumaban, but you don't do it on an offensive manner. So kung right at the very ambush, nandun sila, pwede kang lumaban.
for angkas to accuse na mayroong political na ano yung dalawa, di sila tingnan din saan ang palakasan doon. Wala naman.
Sa New Year, pwede naman tayong mag-enjoy, mag-ingay. Pwede namang mag-ingay at salubungin ng bagong taon nang hindi pa putok ang gagamitin para ma-prevent natin yung mga sakit.